What's going on, guys? Waco from Revolution here with Patrik Hoffmann, the new CEO of Favre Leuba, and one of the key figures behind the revival of this extraordinary brand. Patrik, how are you, sir?
Good to have you. Good to see you again.
He was at Ulysse Nowdown for 20 years, was the CEO for 6 years, and was the person who basically shepherded the sale of Ulysse Nowdown to Kering Group for a figure that is extremely impressive. Can I disclose what I think it is?
I think it's out there anyway.
Okay. So about 650 million euro, which I think is an incredible achievement. But the key thing that I'm trying to say here is that Patrik specializes in building brands, and he's very, very good at it. So Patrik, talk to us about your new project in life, Favre Leuba. Why Favre Leuba?
Well, I was approached because of the sale, as you mentioned, of Ulysse Nowdown, the purchase of Debetun, to look into this brand, and I was very skeptical. I said, why to do that now? Why would anybody invest? And then I started to look into the brand. I didn't really know it. And the more I went into it deep, what I learned about the history, the DNA, the names they used, the movements they used, I said, yes, I want to be part of that journey. It's an honor. I think it's also a responsibility, because I feel like the custodian now going forward for this brand.
You know, in another video, which you'll see, which we've done in Singapore, we were looking at some of the watches you released. There's a watch that you created called the Deep Blue, which is based on your original diving watch from 1964, first watch that had 200 meters of water resistance in your lineup. And the revival version of that has a dome sapphire crystal, has a sapphire bezel to, give evocation of the original Bakelite bezel, and it has a Le Jouperet movement in there. And the watch is 2,000 Swiss francs, which I thought was a staggering value proposition. How important is value for you?
I think it's the key, because the customer, I look always at the customer behind it. And I think you have to give the right product to the customer. You have to look into his eyes. And me personally, I want to be able to look into the mirror when I get up in the morning. So that was important for me. Why the Deep Blue? The Deep Blue was the 60th anniversary. And there are so many names. I think one of the challenges which I had was, let's take 3 lines to concentrate on and pick the right one. Deep Blue was easy because it's the 60th anniversary this year.
There's 2 other lines, of course, that are legends. In 1962, 64, and 68, you guys created 3 of the most iconic sports watches and really defined this whole category of like the gentleman's adventurer kind of watch, right? So in 62, you have the Bivouac, right, which is the first watch with a barometer. 64, you have the Deep Blue. And then in 68, you have the Bathy, right? These 3 watches are awesome. However, from what I understand, you want to create more of a core foundational platform for the brand first before moving into the specialized pieces. Tell me a little bit also about what the Chief and the Sea Sky mean to you.
Okay, I mean, for me, it was important that we are not just going to look into the past. I think it could have been a very easy approach for us to say, let's take some of those vintage pieces, regenerate, redesign them, go out. I think it would have hit the zeitgeist of today. But we have to look into the future, because we don't look at us as a boutique or a niche brand. We want to look into the future. We need volume. We want volume. That's also where Favre Leuba belongs to historically. So we said we have to put the signature into the collection for the relaunch, that people see, okay, there is the past, but they look into the future. And the Chief is the perfect example. I took a piece from the 1970s, which is a chronograph with an incredible movement at that time, of course, very slim, beautiful piece. So we said, okay, we take this as the Chief, because the Chief was one of the names used by Favre Leuba, and do something really contemporary, which can be worn every day. And this is the piece which I wear today. It's called the Chief Date. It's very modern, it's very contemporary. It's very good to wear, because for me it was important to go away from Favre Leuba is just an instrument. It's more than an instrument. Every timepiece for me is an instrument, but this is wearable. And I wanted to create timepieces which are wearable. The way this sits on the wrist, in my opinion, is perfect. It's almost like a second skin. And the inside is important. Power reserve was important for me, and that's why we took the approach and we said everything which we're going to show here now for the relaunch, those 22 SKUs, are based or equipped with La Jouperet movements.
It's a genuinely great watch, actually, and it feels wonderful on the wrist. Now, what's very impressive about this, and back to value proposition, is the difference between this watch and the same watch on a metal bracelet is 75 Swiss francs.
Right.
Why offer that incredible savings to the public?
Well, I think we have to pass on the savings. We have the know-how in production. we didn't take any shortcuts, let's put it this way, but we are passing it on to the consumer.
I love that. And so walk me through the prices of these watches.
Okay, so if you look at the one which you have here, which we call the Chief Date, which has a date window at 3 o'clock, we are talking about the price of 2,300 Swiss francs, the way you have it here, including VAT. And the same timepiece on a bracelet would be 2,375.
That's fantastic.
Now we said we want to do something else because the vintage piece, which was the inspiration, was a chronograph.
Right.
So we said, okay,
chronograph. Right.
Exactly at that time. Right. So we said, now let's go again with La Chouperet, because for me, and you know that from my past as well, power reserve is important.
Right.
So we choose a timepiece which has 60-hour power reserve, La Chouperet, and we said we want to have a chronograph with a column wheel.
Nice.
That's a 41mm case. The date is a 40mm case with all the sophisticated dial which you see. You will not see any print dials, you will not see any stickers, it's all applied faceted indexes.
Yeah, I was going to say that, for watches at this price category, the dials are absolutely spectacular. Yes. If you look at the application of the indexes, the finishing on the indexes, and the hands incidentally as well, and the different levels in terms of finishing, I mean, it's such a visually rich watch.
We have also investors who know how to do this. We are based actually in Grenchen. Favre Leuba has set up the offices there, and we are in the building where actually hands are being produced.
Oh, really?
So
that's great.
We have that value proposition also coming from there.
So ice blue color is actually really cool.
Beautiful, and it will also be available with an ice blue rubber band.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
nice.
That's going to be stunning.
I mean, I guess one question that everyone's going to ask is, I think you've answered it with the whole value proposition and how compelling the watches are, but in the last 3 decades, there have been 3 attempts to restart Favre Leuba. Why will it work this time?
I think if I have to put it in 2 words or 1 word, it's value proposition.
Yeah.
And there's another element, I think it's the right time. I think what you see here on the vintage side, on the modern side, is, I would call it the zeitgeist of today.
Yeah, it's nice because, well, the 2 other lines, the Sea Sky and the Deep Blue, I would say a little bit more heritage themed. What I like about the Chief is it kind of balances it by being much more contemporary as well. And it's kind of like you've got past and future simultaneously in your first offers.
That was the goal.
I got to ask you, because people are going to want to know, Bivouac and Bathier, we're going to see those watches.
I learned very quickly when I talk to consumers or to the freaks out there, the watch collectors, Favre Leuba freaks. Everybody was asking about the Bivouac. So I studied the Bivouac. We started the concept, the project of the Bivouac 3 months ago. It's kicked off. I'm not going to make a hard promise, but in 14 to 15 months we will have a Bivouac. A Bivouac which will be wearable, usable, and very much aligned with the past.
That's cool. Patrik, it's a pleasure, sir. Guys, stay tuned because we have 2 more videos coming for you, one on the Deep Blue and one on the Sea Sky. Those were shot in our bar in Singapore, but it's been a pleasure hanging with you. And in just a short moment, we're going to go do the keynote and presentation for Favre Leuba here at Geneva Watch Day. So
looking
that's exciting.
Forward. Thank you
sir.
so much.
Thank you, guys.